So this slide is an interesting slide because it does a really good job of explaining Xenon View's point of view. What you're looking at here is a diagram of a World War II bomber that were often used by the Allies making bombing runs out over Germany. Now, the problem here that they were up against was that they were losing a significant number, in fact close to 60% of all of the planes were not making it back after their bombing runs. So their first inclination was, well, gee whiz, it must be the pilot, must be absolutely brilliant. But then those pilots started getting shot down as well. So then the second thing they looked at was, well, let's look at the route of those bombing runs. Well, as it turns out, the route wasn't working either because the enemy started moving their guns around, so the route didn't matter. So then they started looking at it a little differently, and they thought, well, maybe there's something else that we're not seeing. So they approached a man by the name of Abraham Wald, who was a statistician, and what he started analyzing was where the bullet holes were showing up on the planes, and then where they weren't. In other words, what were the commonalities of the successful runs coming back and making it safely back to home? Well, what they realized is that those planes that sustained the fewest bullet holes, if any, in the engines or in the cockpit or in the tail fin, were those planes that made it back successfully. Those commonalities then of a successful run were simply that those that didn't have or had fewer bullet holes, again, to those sections of the plane, were the ones that made it back. That's the common profile. In other words, that's what a success profile looks like. They then, and think about it, what if Xenon View had that kind of information, fed that into an AI model, which would then say, recommendation number 1, reinforce with steel bulletproof plates on the bottom side of these planes around the engines, cockpit, and the tail fin. Well, that's what AI does for us, is that it gives us explicit instructions, profiling from what a successful model looks like, and therefore we're going to lose fewer planes. Well, let's start with success, feed that into the AI model, which will then spit back explicit instructions on how to improve the probability of a successful outcome.